Hey everybody, welcome back to Havoc Maker Studio and FMP Wargamer. So slightly different type of video today. I want to do kind of a breakdown of some of the different game systems. You know, which one should you choose? Why should you choose it? That sort of thing. I've been around playing games for decades now, and a retail manager in stores, event coordinator, whatnot, tournament organizer, tournament judge. So I've been around the block for decades. What, 11 years now, I think, here in Houston almost. Coming up 11 years this September. Yay, happy birthday to Houston. I became a Texan in September. That's awesome. I think it was September 5th. Oof, that is awesome. I'm going to pat myself on the back. 10 years. Sorry, this is going to be 10 years. No, it's 11 years. Yeah, it's 11 years. Sorry. Anyways, so when I hear customers, when I was working retail, or when I'm listening to gamers, even now, I hear almost all the time, it's like, what should I buy? What do you recommend? What type of game should I play? What's everybody playing? That sort of thing. And I got to thinking, we can at least do kind of a little fun video, and it's not like this is not going to be an in-depth analysis where I've got every factor, every percentage, um, everything down to the wire of why this game is better than that game, and put this caveat in there before we get too far into this, is that your favorite game that you're playing is your favorite game that you're playing. I am not saying it is the worst game or it is the best game. I'm just saying that these are some of the factors that I've come up with to determine, mainly for new people either getting into miniature wargaming for the first time, or they're tired of the games that they're playing right now and they're looking at alternatives. I find that a lot with right now Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40,000 players. More Warhammer 40,000 players than Age of Sigmar. It's a different type of community, a lot more tight knit, a lot more friendly. But there's still, no matter what game you play, there's always going to be toxic, bad players, bad people in them. Now, the community size exponentially increases that percentage of players. So that's why it might seem like, oh, Warhammer 40,000's got the worst players ever. Well, it's relative to the community size. So Bolts Action from Warlord Games might have the same percentage, but where you got, say, 50 people in the Houston area that are playing Bolts Action, you might have, say, one or two that are bad. Where you have, I think it's around 1,700 is that one of the last relative numbers looking at community sizes, 1,700-ish Warhammer 40,000 players. You might have, I don't know, 170 bad players, maybe 100 players, maybe even just 50. It might even be a small percentage, but it seems larger because that guy's coming. I don't want to play with him. That's some of the things that you have to take into consideration is the community size. And not necessarily that the community is bad, it's just a small percentage. And yes, the small percentage tend to come from, not always and not completely, but from the tournament players. Now, some people will say, oh, the competitive players. Look, if you're playing a miniature game, even if you're playing solo against the AI, like, say, Gloomhaven or Frostgrave, that sort of thing, you're a competitive player because you're competing. Congratulations, you're a competitive player. Now, I think tournament playing is not, if you go to play in tournaments, it doesn't inherently make you a bad player or an evil guy or just a jerk, a toxic player. It's the community and your behavior in it that makes you a bad player. So even if that person that you guys are all like, oh, I don't want to play with that guy because he's such a jerk and he's so rude. Well, it doesn't matter what games he's going to play in. If he's that type of tournament player, and which isn't all of them, I would say this is still a tiny percent, less than 10%. they are going to carry it around with them everywhere. And tournaments tend to bring out the worst in people because you just forked out anywhere from, say, let's say $15 to, and if you go to a big gaming, I don't want to call them gaming convention, because that's, unless there's like vendors and there's artists and there's the whole thing that make it a convention. They're more like gaming events. So saying this is a gaming convention is kind of a misleading in a way, unintentionally. Um, so these gaming events, I've already lost my train of thought, but going to them, it tends to bring out the worst when people, especially when there's money on the line, there's prize support, the fame that some people are seeking, which, if that's your thing, if you want the trophy, you want the prizes, you want the recognition, everything, there's nothing saying that. I'm just saying that that sort of events tend to bring out the worst in a tiny, tiny percentage of people. So, what does this have to do with choosing your game? It's a small factor that I don't want you to think that, oh, it's only limited to tournament players or only limited to anybody who plays a Warhammer game or only limited to, all the best players are the ones that play historicals. There's crappy people that are playing historicals just as much as they are playing Warhammer. It's a smaller percentage, but the percentage is equivalent. There we go. So what I want to talk about is which game do you play? Which game, you might even be asking yourself, you might be asking your friends, you might even be asking your local store, which ones should I play? I'm confused, or maybe I'm stuck on choosing because there's a lot of choices out there. Tabletop miniature game business is, it's just the game, they're flush. There are large scale battle games looking at you, Bolt Action and Warhammer 40,000 Age of Sigmar and Horus Heresy. Those are large scale games, big games, yay. To the smaller games like Moonstone and, say, Infinity, smaller model count versus the large games. There are so many miniature games out there, I can't include them all. And the ones that I have not included does not necessarily mean that they are bad games, like, say, Arena Rex and Wild West Exodus, X-Wing, not Marvel, but DC, the Batman game, the miniature game, the Harry Potter game. I think that's more of a board game than a miniature game, but you get what you smell what I'm stepping in. Or the games that are just not necessarily played that much anymore because of bad business practices, or maybe they had bad rules, a new rules edition that just lost their player base, like War Machine and Hordes, RIP. It doesn't mean that your game is the best. It doesn't mean that your game is the worst. It's just I've included 10 games in my analysis of determining what factors you should look at into playing the games. So what are we actually talking about? Which one catches your eye? This is one of the number one things I'd like to talk about is what game, what miniatures, what lore, what is it that draws you to it? Is it because there's tons of people playing, or is it because you're like, oh, that looks badass. I need that in my life right now. There's plenty of games like that. I don't know how many times new miniatures come across my screen. I'm just like, oh my god, I gotta play that game. I need to buy it. And I hold off because there's a lot to determine in that. So, which one is played in your area? Now, this one is a kind of a multifaceted question you should ask. The biggest thing that you should do is go to your local game store, right? Go to your local game store or stores, find out whatever game it is that you've chose. You're like, I want to play this. Go to your local game stores, or even before you do that, check your Facebook groups. You can just probably start typing in, like, say, Warhammer 40,000 Houston. There's probably a half a dozen pages available, depending on the city size. check those stores, those companies like say DreamPod 9 or Warlord Games, Atomic Mass Games. Go to Store Finder, type in your area, whatever it is, information it's asking, find out what stores is carrying that product. Because there might be a lot of stores that carry Warhammer 40,000, which, you know, you could throw a stone and you're going to hit like 6 stores with it here in Houston. Then you're like, man, I want to play Moonstone. It looks really cool. The miniatures look great. The lore, everything looks fantastic. Oh, there's only 2 stores in North America. One of them is in Humble, Texas. That's Board and Brew Games, by the way, in Humble, Texas. If you want to play Moonstone, which is actually starting to look like a very awesome game, um, that you find that through the store finder or going into the stores themselves. So that is probably one of the best ways to determine this factor of, you know, which one is played in your area. And then of course go to your stores, talk to your friends, that sort of thing. And you might have to end up creating your own community. So you need to think that through, like, hey, I want to play Heavy Gear Blitz 3rd edition, but there's nobody here playing at this store. So ask that store owner, manager, whatever, say, hey man, can I like twice a month maybe do a demo day, maybe once a week, like especially on like weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, set up a small table, do demos and reach out to the people on their Facebook pages, that sort of thing, to have people come in, try out Heavy Gear, grow your community. Next one is, which one can you afford? That is a big factor. Because let's face it, we're not all billionaires that can afford everything. So you need to also take into account, you know, is it a small investment in total, or is it a large investment in total? Can you do a small amount up front and be able to play right off the bat with everybody, or do you have to spend months or even just under $1,000 to almost $1,000 to get everything you need? That is a very important factor. And the last one I want to talk about is that you should take into consideration for choosing is, which one will bring you joy out of hobbying and or playing. That is a very, very important factor. And that kind of ties in with the first one, is which one catches your eye. If you are not having fun playing a game, or you're choosing the game based on, well, I don't want to play this, I don't really like it, but everybody else is playing it, so I might as well play it so I can just be playing some games. Now you're just kind of throwing money out the window, and within a year, you're probably going to turn around and sell that stuff off to one of your buddies, probably within that first year. Having worked at several game stores and then going around to like their gamer flea markets, you see it. You know that they bought it. You know where they got it. You know they've only played a few games and they're already getting rid of it. That is such a sad thing that happens, that, you know, they're selling off the game, so they're losing money. Yeah, they're turning around with that store credit to buy a new game, but now they might not be playing the game they want to play either, because, you know, well, everybody else is playing this other game I don't want to play, and now I've got to invest in that. Yikes. So here are the games that I'm going to talk about today. We got Marvel Crisis Protocol, Warcry, Infinity, Heavy Gear Blitz, Star Wars Legion, Moonstone, Frostgrave / Stargrave, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40,000, and Bolt Action. Now this is a broad group of miniature games that are in high demand right now, or they're relatively new onto the scene. They got some new additions. Now this doesn't include, like I said, games like, say, War Machine and Hordes, X-Wing, Starship or Star Wars Armada, that sort of thing. I'm not including those just because there's a lot of games out there that I haven't even mentioned. These are the ones that I see played a lot here in Houston. So these are the games that we're going to focus on with this analysis. So speaking of that analysis, what am I looking at here? What are the factors and how am I rating everything? So the first one is time, the average time to play a standard game. A standard game is usually in sync with a tournament game. So say Warhammer 40,000 or Age of Sigmar, that is a 2,000 point game. Infinity, I believe, is a 300 point game. Heavy Gear Blitz, say a 150 point, I believe it is. It's 100 to 150. Then we got like Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is that varies, but I think the average point cost was a 14-point game or a 15-point game. So basically about 5 models. Then, of course, rule books, cost of required rule books. So is the rule book free? Do you have to buy that? Do you actually buy the rule book? Is it optional? That sort of thing. The army books, there's a lot of games that include that you have to buy the army books. Though a lot of the smaller skirmish games, just for your own knowledge base, a lot of the smaller skirmish games like Star Wars and Marvel Crisis Protocol, Moonstone are including the rules in the miniature pack. So you get the rules for those different groups right there. Then, of course, minimum buy-in. Now, this is minimum cost to start. That includes includes the rule books that you need and the smallest point value for you to be able to start playing. Okay. Now, this is average. And then, of course, the average game buy-in. Now, the average, by this I mean the standard gameplay. So that's at 2,000 points. Where the minimum is like maybe, say, a 500-point game, say, looking at Warhammer 40,000. Or 2,000 points for Age of Sigmar. Just give you an idea. This is all in US dollars. And then the rating, now total for each category is going to range from 1 to a 4. The higher the number, so a 4 is the most ideal, and a 1 is not so ideal. So just so you guys have a general idea of what it is that I am talking about. So this is a rough breakdown. You big brain mathematics people can do your own analysis. Maybe hit me up in the comments. Let me know. I don't know about this, John. So just go ahead and let me know what you guys think. There are plenty of other factors, and I could be off here, but I think at its core, what I've done here is enough to give a good overview, a good highlight of these games for your factors. Now, I'm not going to read off all of these since this is not going to be going on a podcast just yet. Maybe in a future episode, I'll do a podcast where I include all these numbers. But I'm going to include the 3 top and then at least 2 others. One of them being the lowest rating and another one somewhere in between the highest and the lowest. Does that make sense? So the first 3 I'm going to talk about, since they all kind of have the same rating and that require their own little breakdown here, is Heavy Gear Blitz from DreamPod 9. It's got an average playing time of 90 minutes. Now this is, if you guys aren't smoking and joking, you're just playing the game and you're knee deep in it, not taking breaks and having to look up rules, all that kind of stuff. 90 minutes. The rule book is free, or you can buy, and that's a digital download, or you can buy a $30. This is the approximate price. I might have rounded down $1. So keep that in mind. $30 for a physical copy. Now there are some follow-on books that you can get, but you're not required to. Does that make sense? Those are those supplement books, but they're not required, and that's one of the factors for Rulebook. So minimum buy-in, $65 is what I put down as looking at the average cost. $65 gets you a starter box, which average game buy-in is that box. That $65 box will get you a complete tournament ready, or point wise, armies. That 150 points that they're looking at, and it can go up to about 200 points, and I think it can go down to about 125 points, or actually it can go down lower than that. You can actually put less points, but it can go up to, maybe if you stretch things out, 200 points. So you have a very large selection of models, not only for the average game size, but plus some. Not plus ultra, but you do have that wiggle room to expand more. And then, of course, you can pay for more, but that is one of the factors. Now, with Heavy Gear, it's obvious that this is one of the biggest pros. It's inexpensive, it's easy to play, and it's got a low model count. Okay? The cons is availability and your player community. That is something that you'll need to take into consideration. The next one of the top is Marvel Crisis Protocol. 90 minutes again, so an hour and a half of game time. I've seen it way less than that. I've seen games over in 45 minutes. Hell, I've been in games where it's over in 45 minutes. So it can go slow and it can go fast. Rulebook is free. Rulebook comes in the core box and it's available for free on their webpage. Minimum buy-in, $99. And the reason why I include this is because this is the core box that gives you literally everything you need to play. Terrain, all the miniatures to make up a 10-man roster, the rulers, the dice, the cards, everything you need in under $100. And it also includes the physical copy of the rulebook. And then, of course, average game buy-in, $99. Average game requires everything that comes in that core box. That's all you need. You can just go from there. That is, I think this game has the best flexibility, by the way, because you can mix and match heroes and villains and anti-heroes and everybody in between or outside of that scope. I think Marvel Crisis Protocol has probably the top of this in flexibility and customization and whatnot. Next one is the new kid on the block is Moonstone, and I'm going to be doing a future video on actually a lot of these games. Moonstone's going to be coming up in about a week or two. I'm going to do a 2-part series with this. 90 minutes average play time. It has free rules online, including the free cards. Well, free, you would have to end up printing them off, so there's a little bit of an expense in there. Or you can buy the rule book for 25 bucks. All right, the minimum buy-in, whether you're taking the free stuff and then buying miniatures, you're looking at about $90. The starter box comes with 2 forces, and the rule book, the cards, the dice, the rulers, everything you need to play the game. So $90, really choice there, and that's also the average game buy-in. You have everything you need there for anywhere from a 2-player, I think, up to a 3 or 4-player, a 4-player game in that box, depending on you'll see. So really cool there. Its biggest weakness is the availability. There's only 2 places in Houston, or sorry, in North America that has it. One is here in Houston, or a suburb or whatever of Houston, Humble, Texas. That's at Board and Brew Games. They do demos. They actually have a demo copy there. They have the full selection of the miniatures, rule books, everything you need to play the game, by the way, including some amazing, probably the most gorgeous tables I have seen at any store. Only, from what I understand, Goldmine Games, way down south, has some amazing Warhammer 40,000 tables. But for every type of game system, I would say Board and Brew has the highest quality table, like picture level quality tables. So the availability and player base, that's the only thing that really hurts. So you can order online and find players locally, hopefully, depending on the city size, or just create your own communities. At least here in Houston, we have a player base and a place to play and a retailer. So we're very fortunate. One of the great things about being here in Houston, we are flush with stores. All right, so I want to, before I get to the lowest one or the worst one to look at, I'm just going to randomly pick one here. Let's go for Star Wars Legion. There we go. It's a 2-hour game. It has a free rule book that comes either in the core box or you can download it. All the game cards come with the miniatures, and the average buy-in, minimum buy-in, and now this is a 2-player box, is $119. That's going to get you literally everything, all the components, rulers, dice, everything you need to play, since it uses proprietary dice. Now the average game buy-in, and this is based off of tournament lists or some average game lists that I see people on Facebook posts like, hey, what do you think of this list? Talking about. So about $175. Nice, kind of a mid-range, a little bit, probably about double of a lot of the smaller games, but it's got a larger player base, easy accessibility, a lot of availability, relatively inexpensive to play, easy to play, and low model count like a lot of the smaller games. Just a higher price tag and a higher time or longer time to play. Not by much, but still there. Now the worst offender is also one of the most popular games, so it's kind of a weird thing. Look at Warhammer there at the bottom. This includes Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40,000, and but not Horus Heresy. Even though Horus Heresy is roughly in there somewhere, it's got a higher price tag than the other two games. So you're looking at 3 hours for the average game, right? This is the 2,000 point game. Rulebooks, $110 or more. You're looking at $60 for the core rulebook. You're looking at $50 for your army book. And of course, there's supplement books that, like Warzone type books that come out later on, or there's a supplement for your army. So looking at you Space Marines, you've got like Ultramarines, White Scars, Death Watch. You got like I think 6 or 7 supplement books. So that's adding on another $30. So you're looking at 140, 150 with taxes, maybe 160 with taxes just for your books. So, but let's go back to your army book, your core rule book, and add in the minimum buy-in. This is what I look at as the start collecting boxes, which are probably the best deals that Games Workshop does. It's $140, and you're getting a plethora of models there. Everything for about a 500-point game, which is basically the lowest level of game you're going to be playing. You can go, I think, 250, but 500 is really what you're probably going to be doing. And that's in that $140 value. It's usually about a $200, $220 worth in that box. So you are, I think the average is $200. You're getting a lot out of that. So now you're $250 for minimum buy-in. And next to Bolt Action, it is, and Warcry, and I'm going to talk about Warcry. I feel like I need to talk about it. It's one of the highest minimum buy-ins. Now, the average game buy-in, this is that 2,000 point game that most players, whether they're tournament players, casual players, league players, crusade, whatever, you're looking at 2,000 point armies, what you're going to be going for. And you are, on average, going to be paying $800. Now, that includes the rule books and tons of models. Now there's 21 different factions, and then there's all the sub factions for Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar. There's so many variations, so many books out there, so many models that could go up or slightly down, but at $800 is about the average. Now remember, all this that I'm talking about does not include paints, brushes, glue, and such. So that's why these ratings, you can see that last column, the ratings, they kind of go up and down. I want to talk about Warcry real quick. Warcry, you can buy a lot of the stuff separate. However, currently on Games Workshop's webpage, you cannot buy the dice. They are proprietary dice. They got little symbols and stuff on it. Now, can you take, say, a 6-sided dice or 10-sided, 8-sided, and have a numerical value assigned to each of the different symbols based on all that? Yeah, you can. But you're still, for everything you need, $210 is minimum buy-in, average game buy-in, $210. Everything you need for 2 players in there, or just 1 player with a lot of stuff, terrain, the board, everything that you need to play the game is in that box. Really a good, solid box, but it's kind of in a weird area there. And it's got probably it actually does have the lowest game time. If you guys are sticking to the rules, you're playing everything along, 45 minutes. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Might go longer, might go faster, just like other games like Marvel Crisis Protocol, even Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar. They say 3 hours to play the game, 2.5 to 3 hours, but that could end up being faster. You could be wiped out by turn 2, and you're only an hour and a half in. So there's a lot of those different factors that kind of get that I'm not including here. This is just a basic analysis. But I wanted to be able to cover all this stuff. So, like I said, the pros and cons that you need to consider is the cost of the game, your average play time, the availability of the stores. At least one store, or you need to at least have a store. That'd be great. If you don't have a store and you're like in one of those areas that there's no game store within comfortable driving distance, but you got people that play, that whole factor of being a pro or con, just factor that in and just like treating it like a store. So if there's like 5 of you guys and you're out in the middle of nowhere and your nearest game store is an hour and a half away, okay, that sucks. It's probably a rare thing, but that sucks. It does. But you guys got your local group, so that really kind of lapse that, if that makes sense. And then the community size that kind of comes into that whole availability. So there's a lot of pros and cons that kind of get factored in. The biggest takeaway from all this is A, whatever game it is that you want to play it. Buy the models, grow the community, just get involved in it. Don't do things just because the community. That's my recommendation, is that you don't do anything just because, well, most of the players here play Magic the Gathering and Warhammer 40,000. Well, I guess I'm just going to be stuck playing one of those two. No, 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 no. Play what you want, grow the community, or search for that community. There's going to be players there that are people that are interested in the game that you're interested in, or they're already playing. They're just looking for other players because these other games kind of end up pushing them out because people are like, well, I guess I got to play this game. You don't have to, man. If it brings you joy, play it. Okay, grow that community. You might have to put a little bit of legwork in or a little bit of keystrokes, but you can grow that community. And that's what I think a lot of people kind of lose sight of, especially when you have these massive games like Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar, Bolt Action, that kind of, and even Marvel Crisis Protocol kind of overshadow all these smaller games. Find your community, grow it, and have fun, okay? And one other thing is, these are your miniatures. Paint them however you want. I used to be a stickler for, oh, well, if you're playing Ultramarines, you got to paint them like Ultramarines. No, no. If you want pink Ultramarines, paint some pink Ultramarines. I don't care. And nobody else should either. If you say those pink Space Marines are Ultramarines, okay, great. Fantastic. Thank you for telling me that those are Ultramarines. Or if you're playing Marvel Crisis Protocol and you paint up say the Red Skull and Bob, the Hydra agent, in fluorescent yellows and blues, that's okay. Do what you want. They're your models. They're your models. Do whatever you want. It might lower the resale value to some people, but if it's a game you love, a game you enjoy, then who cares? You're not going to sell those models. You're not. All right. I hope you guys like this. Please drop a comment below, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down, what you guys think about, maybe a recommendation on some other games. Oh, I would love some recommendations on other games so I can start doing some upcoming videos talking about trying the games out or talking about them and then trying them out, giving you guys some honest reviews about it, especially since I'm not paid by any of these companies and I'm not dependent upon getting free product from them and then being like a game journalist or a movie journalist reviewer that's like, well, if I want to keep doing this, I gotta give them some mad props. No, none of these people pay me, so I'm still small right now. That's not to say if Marvel Crisis Protocol comes around and go, hey dude, we're gonna give you free miniatures and we're going to give you exclusives if you talk good about us. I might just kind of consider talking good about them. I'm not going to lie. I'm a human being. But more than likely, I'm going to maintain my integrity. And I'm going to tell them, I'm going to give you an honest review. I just won't use curse words. So anyways, let me know what you guys think below. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, especially if it's red. That means you haven't subscribed yet. I know it's a pain in the ass to create an account. Well, pain in the ass, you got to type in your name and your email address and then verify and then come back and hit subscribe. It's a less than 5 minute process, but it does help me out and gets me to a point that I can start doing price support again, just giveaways, not price support, but giveaways. I want to get back to that. I only have a few items left, so I'm waiting for a big day to do giveaways. Anyways, you guys have yourself a wonderful day. And I will talk to you probably tomorrow. I think we're going to have some good information coming out tomorrow from Marvel Crisis Protocol. Or it's going to be today. See you guys later.